Hello YouTube, my name is Isabella and today I'm going to be discussing and doing a spoiler-free review for Scythe by Neal Shusterman. I'm real late to this party, but I am very interested and have a lot to say about this book, so I felt the need to review it, even though I am like 5 years late. Scythe is the first book in a young adult dystopian trilogy in which humanity has conquered death. Literally everything that humanity was threatened by in the past is no more, and because of that, Earth has a huge sort of overpopulation problem. Therefore, humanity created something called a Scythedom, in which people are basically given the vocation and the okay to kill. At the beginning of the story, two teens are approached by a Scythe to be his apprentice, and as they go through the year of training, they soon discover that the Scythedom isn't as pure and not holy, I don't want to say holy, and unblemished as it is meant to be, and they deal with the ramifications of that directly. Scythe definitely was a pleasant surprise for me. I wasn't expecting a lot of it. I'm not usually as mad by a dystopian book as some people are, because in the 2010s I didn't go and burn myself out by every single dystopia. I think I read The Hunger Games, Divergent, and a couple others, but I didn't read every single dystopian known to man, so I can still enjoy a dystopian book every now and again, but this was definitely a pleasant surprise and surpassed my expectations. I do have some problems with it, which we will get into as well, but overall I'm shocked I enjoyed it so much, and might as well just get into the review. Actually, I forgot. Content warnings. Content warnings include self-harm and suicide, murder and death, fatphobic language, gun violence, and gore. The world building was my favorite part, even if I do have some complaints with how the world is built. What sets this book apart, I think, from so many YA dystopians and why so many people really well responded to it is how well thought out the world is and how just interesting the world itself is. I was fascinated by a world in which death doesn't exist and the seeming ramifications from that. It is witnessing an entirely different culture, and it's so unfathomable, but so just interesting. Some of the questions posed, I honestly was just, I couldn't stop reading and couldn't stop thinking about the book when I wasn't reading it. I do wish Neal Shusterman leans into some of the more horrifying bits of it, or discusses that really at all. He doesn't. It was just my brain talking about how you don't have the choice and how you're forced to live, and that kind of seems like just a nightmare to my brain. And I know he could address it in the future of the series, but I would have liked that to kind of even be touched on a little bit. I also liked the ideas behind the two separate aspects of the governance. There's this AI almost all-powerful being, and the Scythedom, and how they can't interact with one another and basically have to deal with their own business. That stuff also was interesting. I liked the politicking in this world with the Scythes themselves. I liked even just learning about the Scythes and how they worked as a governing body as a whole, and how honestly the Scythedom was definitely flawed inherently, in how they didn't catch certain things at the beginning seemed a little bit wrong to me and not super well thought out. Things definitely fell through the cracks, but anyway, as you can tell, there was a lot to discuss. I think this would be a great book to buddy read with a friend and chat with, because there was a lot packed into this world. Not everything was satisfying or done and addressed that I would have liked, but overall, the world was really freaking cool and something I still think about even after I finished it. The characters are incredibly flubbed, and is where my biggest issues and gripes with this story are. Brewster, you're fine. Stop. Individually on their own, they don't really stand out. Brewster, please stop. It's not time yet. Stop. Wow. I don't know if you can hear him crying, But it's not dinner time. No. There's not a lot that sets these two characters apart. I don't think you get to know enough about them until the very end. There's one character I started sympathizing with a lot more because of their circumstances were really difficult. There's an added element of the romance that is just ridiculous so early on into the story. It's wild that Neil Schusterman thought that was a good choice to make. Is bad. It's just not necessary, and I don't think it enhances the story at all. I just wasn't really a fan of their characterization. I think Rowan, the main character, his development and plot was more interesting, but I don't like them as characters. They're just fine. They're not very standout. The side characters, however, there are some very interesting side characters that I loved when our main characters were interacting with them, learning about how they conducted themselves in the past and how they kind of influenced and possibly changed the Scythedom sometimes. All their stuff was super interesting and kind of sometimes made up for our crappier main characters. And the villain in here was whack. This is one of the most mustache twirling villains I've ever read from, and honestly it kind of got ridiculous and cartoonish. He seems so out of place with this world that seems so very well developed and not grounded in realism, because this is set way in the future, but has so many interesting rules and so much thought behind it, that having this like ridiculous villain that just like twirling all the mustache kind of, it lessened some enjoyment at times. He was just honestly ridiculous. The plot I very much enjoyed. It's very fast paced. It's fun, keeps you on your toes, it's engaging. Something I liked so much about how the story went was that there are some possibly, you could say, I guess, stereotypical things that happen in here and things that you suspect, but then the way they pan out is not in the way you would suspect at all, and it put a really interesting spin on some twists that you're like, oh, of course this is what's going to happen, but then how they happen and like the consequences of those like things that you thought you saw coming are so interesting that it kind of forgives a little bit of like some of the stereotypical like things that you think you see coming. I found most things to be surprising and unexpected. I liked the ramifications a lot from a lot of the reveals that happened throughout the course of the story, and the finale was interesting. Again, I really like the consequences of the end and what it means for the overall future of the story and series, and I did not expect it to end the way it did. So the writing overall, I generally liked the prose. I thought it was fine. There was nothing super standout about like the writing itself. However, there are some added elements of like diary entries from various different Scythes at the end of every chapter, and it also helps a lot with some world building. I liked some of the philosophical questions they kind of pose and how they're sort of working through things, and how you see that different Scythes have such different views that it really kind of makes you question the whole Scythedom as a whole, but like in interesting ways. That I think was really smart added element. I did pick up on a lot of like fat-phobic language, so much so that it started to bother me, and I could like pick it out with ease. Like I don't tend to notice that all the time, or if like one sentence is said by one character, I'm okay with it, but like the prose itself had some fat-phobic language. How some characters thought about things were not great. It kind of goes out of its way to make fun of like fat characters and makes fun of their bodies on top of making fun of them. So that kind of stuff I got irritated with at times. I was like, it wasn't necessary. It happened more than like a few times, so enough for me to constantly be picking up on it and be irritated with it. Ultimately, I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. I generally really liked where the story went. The world was fascinating, but I think there could be some themes and things expanded upon to make it a bit more satisfying for my personal tastes. And the characters themselves were on the struggle bus. The characterization is what really kind of lowered my overall rating. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of Scythe, and if you think it's worth continuing on in the series. I do own the other books, so I probably will read them, but like, if you have any passionate opinions either way, I would love to know. But as always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.